Today I want to take a look at Puppeteer, which is a node library that lets you control and script Chromium in Google Chrome to basically do whatever you want. You can take screenshots, you can scrape and grab content out of web pages. You can check if the brand new NVIDIA RTX 3080 is in stock on bestbuy.com. And so let's start with what I'm actually trying to do here. This is actually a real thing I encountered the other day, where I have this podcast that I listen to, the Kubernetes podcast from Google, and I wanted to find a particular episode, and the only thing I remembered about the episode was that in the beginning they were discussing about a little library they were building outside their house that you could put books into and share books with. And so going off of that, I can come to the podcast website, and I can grab one of these episodes. And the nice thing is they have the transcript of the entire episode at the bottom of the page here. So here's the whole conversation. So I could come in here and go through 124 episodes and search for a library. That's one option. The other option is I can over-engineer the solution and use Puppeteer to scrape all of these individual podcast episodes across multiple pages and find the phrase I'm looking for. And so naturally that's what I did, because that seems a lot more fun. And so let's just jump right into getting started with Puppeteer. So I have a brand new directory here, and let's initialize a new npm project. And I'm going to open up that package JSON, and I'm just going to set this as a JS module. It will let me do a few extra features without having to do some flags and overrides. And then I'm going to install Puppeteer. And so this is going to go out, grab that library, and it's also going to download its very own copy of Chromium that it's going to use. And you can also tell it to use your own version of Google Chrome or specify a path to a different one. And so now that I've got that, let's just open up my index.js file. We'll first import Puppeteer. And then we need to start by creating a browser. So let's say browser equals await Puppeteer. And so this is using async await in JavaScript. Puppeteer here will return a promise, and we are going to just wait for that promise to finish. So you could look up how await works. It's pretty standard now. It came out back in 2015. And so I'm going to launch Puppeteer, which is going to launch me a Chromium window. And by default, it's going to launch into a headless mode, which just means that it's going to run in the background and we're not going to see it. But I actually want to watch it for the purpose of building this out. So we'll set headless to true. And so now we have our browser that we can work with. And we should also clean up at the end of the day. So we should say browser.close. And that'll be the last thing that happens in our script. And just to call out here, you'd probably want to abstract a lot of what we're going to be writing into some functions with proper error handling. So I'll leave that as an exercise for you. And now we need to grab a page out of that browser. So we'll say new page. And we can tell that page to navigate to the website here. And I'm also going to pass an option here to tell it to wait until the network is idle. And there's two different versions of network idle in here. You should check the docs to see which one you actually want. We're going to go with idle 2. And so that will navigate the page to the website. And then we can tell it to do something like, let's take a screenshot of the website. So we'll say page.screenshot. And I have to give it the path option. And we'll just say image.png. And so that should be all we need to get this to work. So if we run that, it's going to open the web page, take a screenshot, which we should have here. And I can open the screenshot up, and we'll see that it's going to have a screenshot of the web page, right? So it starts out with a very small window. You can specify the dimensions here. But cool, that worked well. And so let's expand on what we have. We'll pull out the screenshot bit. And so I made a mistake. I want this to be headless false. That's why the window didn't pop up there. And so let's see. So if we go into the first episode here, I noticed something off the bat that not every episode has a transcript uploaded yet. So that's something we'll have to take into account. I think this one had a transcript already. Yes, right. So we can show a full transcript. And so naturally, when you're approaching scraping web pages, you generally want to get a feel for what you're scraping. So let's take this individual item here and let's open up the inspector. Put that on this side. Make this a bit bigger. And so here we can see all we really care about is down at the bottom here, this whole transcript section. And so you can kind of, use the inspector to look at the source here. And so I see they have a nice div of ID transcript. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. We can come in, there's the title. Let's toggle that. Okay, so we have the full transcript is hidden here with the summary. So I believe we need to grab both of those things. And then there's also this show transcript button. Yep, it has an ID of show transcript, class button, cool. So we're getting a feel for that. So let's start with grabbing an individual transcript. And so if we come back in here, we can change our URL to be that individual episode page. And now I can actually grab that page and kind of evaluate the HTML on it and interact with it just like I could if I was writing scripts in the context of the web page, which is really cool. And so let's do that. Let's say page.eval. So there's a couple different methods here for evaling. You'll definitely want to check the docs. This puppeteer.dev site has all the API documentation. We're going to look up the page class right here. And so here's some events that it fires. Here's those selectors. So this is the one that I believe we're going to be using. It will generally return a query selector all, so it will have an array. The main difference between this one and the single $sign is this will actually throw an error if it doesn't find that element. And so that's something we may want to do, the main difference between those. And then the other option is the eval functions actually take in a page callback function to deal with that element that gets found. So let's say we want to look for this transcript div, this section, which has an ID of transcript. And from looking at the ones that don't have it, I know that if an episode doesn't have a transcript yet, it's missing this whole section. So that's a good place for us to start. And so what we can do is we can look for the ID of transcript. And then this will give us a list of elements. And that's a callback function. And inside the context of this function here, anything we do is evaluated inside of the page's context. And whatever we return gets returned into a variable here. So we'll just say const transcript for now. So now I can check if this transcript element actually exists. So we can say if elements.length greater than 0, because it's a list, so it will always have it'll always exist, right? We don't want the one that's throwing an error right now. It'll make it harder to handle. So we'll check if it's greater than 0. And if it is, we want to grab the element, the first element out of that list. And then we want to look at first, so we have to click this show full transcript button because we want to abstract the inner text of this whole section to make it easier to parse, because the summary and this full transcript, you can see here, they're separate. And so we want to abstract the full text inside of this div section. So we have to click this button is what I'm getting at. So we got to find this button and then we have to click it to get this whole thing expanded, because inner text will not give us all that hidden text. And so we can look for the button of show transcript. And actually, I'm gonna invert our logic here. So instead of checking the length, we'll check if the length is 0, and then if it is, we will return null for now. And so what's next? We need to grab that button. So we'll say const section equals elements 0. Const button equals section dot query selector. This should give us that button. And then we can tell it to click that button. And if you're not sure about how what to do in this context here, I always just like to drop into the actual console of the page, and we can actually run the same code that we're looking for. So I can just say button equals document.query selector, query selector of this, and I get my button, and then I should be able to just call .click on it. And cool, you can see that it's toggling that button there. So my editor doesn't have that context, but that's okay. So we'll click the button. Then we can grab the full text inside of that transcript. And we'll do that with, we'll just grab the whole section, and we'll grab the inner text out of that section. And I'm going to return that. So we're going to return the section.innerText into transcript, and then I should be able to log out that transcript. And let's see what happens. Opening the page, navigating, boom, there is our whole transcript. So we should have everything that was said from the very intro to the very end. Awesome. So now that's one page down. What we need to do next is we need to turn this into handling multiple pages. And it's not just multiple pages, multiple episodes, it's going to be multiple pages of episodes. So if you come down here, you can see that we have a next button to go to the next page. And so we can keep clicking that, right? So still navigating down. And I know from doing this that there are currently 13 max pages. And we can see when there's no other pages, this button exists with a class of disabled. So that's the logic we're going to be looking for. So again, you're coming in and out of the web page here and really figuring out what you want to do to automate in the browser. So we'll go back home. And so the first thing we'll do before grabbing the transcript, so let's say that we navigate back to that home page, is I want to grab all of the episode pages. So I want to grab all of these URLs. So we can see this is a URL here. And it's got an href. So every episode has an href and a class of episode. And then we have the next button. So I want to traverse all of the base pages, so all 13 of them. But again, when you're writing your scripting and automation, it's future-proof unless the website changes. So as they add more episodes, this should all work, and I should be able to crawl no matter how many pages there are. So I'm going to first grab all of the individual episode links, and then we'll walk through all of the pages while grabbing them, and we'll save everything. Because once we have all of the individual episode pages, then we can visit each episode page individually. And so we'll start with that. And so I'm going to tell it to find that next button on the home page. And it has a class of next. So let's say, we'll say let next equal await page dot eval. So So we'll eval a single item because it's most likely always going to be there, so it won't throw an error. And we'll grab the next, and that will give us an element back. And then I want to check if that disabled class is also on the element. And if it is, then I don't want to keep going. So let's say if element.classlist.contains disabled, then I want to return null. Otherwise, I want to grab all of the pages on this, all of the episodes on this page. So let's copy this, and we can say episode, and we'll create a list. We'll just say I'll start with the const, let episodes equal an empty array. And we want multiple eval. And we want to look for the the div with the class of episode. So this will definitely have multiple elements. And so we can say, we'll do return elements dot map. So this will loop through all of the matching classes. And then we want to grab the href out of them.
In this talk.
Ooh. And so we're looking for the h3 with the a link, and we want the href out of that. So we want episode h3 anchor tag. And so I can map over all of those, and I'll get an individual element. And then we want to return out the href. So this should give me a list of episodes. And so let's change, we'll do this for now. Let's see what happens. We're going to have to change that in a second. I want a console log, make sure it's working. We'll grab all those episode links. And we'll grab the next link we also captured above. And then this section we can just ignore for now. That shouldn't error out. Grabbing the page. Boom. So there's our list of hrefs that we're looking for. And again, I'm just working with CSS selectors here. So these are just simple CSS selectors. And so now we have all the episodes from the first page. And then we have the next page. So I think what I want to do is something along the lines of, why don't we say, let next page equal this, which is the home page. So we'll start with the home page. And then we can, let's do a while loop. So while next, I want to navigate to next. And then I want to also grab the next. So let's assign, we'll reassign next here. So I didn't finish this. So let's say it will return null if it has that disabled link. Otherwise, I want it to return the href. So let's get the attribute of the href. Okay. That looks good. So this is going to eval, find the next. If it's disabled, we're going to return null. If it's not, we're going to grab the link to the next page. And then we're also going to grab the episodes, which means that we need to start building out that episode list. Right, so sometimes when you're building this, you don't know what you're going to wind up with. So we'll start with an episodes array that's empty. And then here we'll call this, we'll call it list for now. And then we can say episodes equal episodes dot concat. I think it's concat, and we'll concat with the list. And so this is episodes is an array, so we can concatenate the list of episodes here. And again, because this is this map will return an array, we do need to do a concatenation, or else we will have an array of arrays. We could do like a flat map afterwards if we need to, but this will do it in one pass. And so I'm also going to print out next in here, just so we see. Actually, we'll start with next, so we see the progress we're making. And then we'll have our list of episodes, and boom. So let's see what happens. We'll give that a shot. And we got an error because list is not defined, which makes sense. We didn't declare it because I just changed the name. So let's just say const list. Give it another go. So that's the one page. We didn't navigate. And we didn't navigate because this didn't return. So we need to actually return out of this function. Props to all of you that have been catching my errors. Boom. So you see now we're navigating through this list. We're going to hit 13 pages for now. And then we should print out a list of all the episode URLs. Cool. Which we do. It's got this big list. 24 more items would put us at episode 1. Very cool. We can see those pages we navigated. All right. So hopefully you're seeing how you can build this out and kind of adapt it to whatever websites you're interested in. And so now that I have a list of all of the episodes I want, so we can remove that. And so now what do we need to do? We need to walk through that list of episodes, visit them individually, do that whole clicking of the show transcript button if it exists, and then I want to look for that inner text that I was talking about. So let's iterate over those. So we'll just say for let episode of episodes and we'll tell the we'll say await page dot go to the episode, and I need that wait until, that was a wait until network idle. Cool. So that should work. And then I can just grab this. We'll move this in here. Do a little prettier. And so it's going to find that div of transcripts. If it doesn't exist, it's going to return null. And if it does exist, it's going to click the button and return the text of that transcript. Cool. And what do I want to do with this? So now I am returning a list of transcripts. And I can take that individual transcript. And let's say we want to do the regex match, right? So let's just toss a regex here. So we'll say const regex equals, I know what I'm looking for is they said something about free little library or little free library. And we'll mark that as a case insensitive with the I. And so now we can take that, let's just do a regex.match, or I think it's exec, yeah. Exec on the transcript. And what does that return? That returns a regex array, which I believe if it doesn't match anything, it's null. So we can say, so we'll say match if not match No, we can actually check. This logic will be okay to do this. So we'll say if it matches, I want to print out the episode link, which should just be episode. Cool. Don't need to print the transcript. And I think that's it, actually. So let's give it a go. So first thing we should do is walk all 13 of those pages, grabbing all those individual episode links. And then we should start visiting them one by one, which it looks like we're doing. And so this will take a little bit of time. So I'll probably cut the video here, and we'll come back after it's done crawling all of them. We'll see what kind of matches we got. All right. So we're all done, and we have 4 episodes that match that got printed out. Let's start with the first one. And if we come in here, here we go. We can see exactly what I was looking for. They're talking about a little free library outside of the house that they were building. So boom, problem solved with some over-engineering. Let's walk through the code one more time. And so we have, we just started with importing Puppeteer. We're launching a Puppeteer with the headless false. You can just leave this option off completely if you don't want to watch what the page is doing, or you're running this as a background job. We're starting up a new page, and we could actually parallelize this a little bit if we wanted to. Let's leave that as an exercise for you all to figure out how to do. And we started with our next page here. And so you'll go back and forth with logic like this. I like doing some idempotent type of code where it will, run and not have to do a lot of if checking. So by starting with this, it let us do a nice little while loop logic here to get all of that for us. So we created our page, and we told it to go to that starting URL. Then we use that eval function. So remember, the single $sign throws an error if the item doesn't exist. We could have done something like disabled on here to skip that next check, but we would have had to use the two $signs and dealt with the array, because on the pages that don't have that, you could say not disabled, right? So you have to figure out what kind of selectors you actually want to use. So we evaluate the selectors, checking the class list, grabbing that attribute, saving the text that comes out of that, concatenating our list of episodes. So we were walking through all of the base pages to grab all the episode URLs, and that's how we started. And then we had our list of episode URLs that we navigated to. We grabbed the transcript linked. We had to click that expand button to be able to do this inner text here. Otherwise, it wouldn't show that hidden text. And then we were just doing our little regex to match on that, what I was looking for. And so there you go. Hopefully this was informative. Puppeteer is pretty great. You can do a lot of awesome things with it. Be sure to check out the API docs. There's potential for abuse when doing some web scraping, so obviously don't be a jerk, and have some fun hacking. So thanks.